5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
One breath. That's all you have. And that one breath may be your last. Free diving is probably the most extreme of extreme sports. You challenge your life by diving as far as you can on one breath, deep into the hostile environment of the dark reaches of water. With little recourse for help, should your body pass out from a lack of oxygen, you push further to depths deeper than a 10-story building. This is the world and home of South Africa's freediving champion, Trevor Hutton.
About half an hour's drive from Tsumeb, you'll find Lake Guinness. It's a natural sinkhole, 130 meters deep, and it's a site that 29-year-old freediver Trevor Hutton has chosen to try to break his first world record.
When Trevor first drove along the dusty Namibian roads to Lake Guinness about a month ago, he certainly didn't expect the sapphire pool nestled in the scrub. Locations like these are secrets well guarded by the diving community, he says, and he only found out about it by chance.
I'd known about something here, but I'd never been able to actually get a source of it. The deep diving community is very shrouded when it comes to locations like this. So I was very lucky to find it. Put it this way, somebody that free dives and has been looking for a location for maybe 8 years now. It's taken me long enough to find the place.
Lake Guinness is one of the only 2 open-air lakes in Namibia. With a water temperature of 26 degrees all year round and all the way down, and good visibility, the conditions are ideal for free diving.
First good thing is that it's privately owned, and the farmer that's given us access here doesn't let anybody dive here at all, so it's kept pristine. To get fresh water that clean is just incredible.
Watching his grace and playfulness in the water, it seems that Otter, as Trevor is affectionately called, has always belonged here.
I could swim underwater long before I could swim on the surface. I'd jump into the pool in the shallow end, and I could go to the deep end and I could come back to the shallow end, but if you'd chuck me in the deep end, I'd drown.
Gradually, Trevor formalized his passion for water into the sport of free diving. Initially, he could only hold his breath for 45 seconds. At 19, he met a Romanian coach who taught him yoga techniques to allow him to control his breath. The average man has a lung capacity of 4 liters. Trevor has more than double that capacity to about 9. In training for his current attempt at breaking the world record, he's been able to hold his breath for up to 7 minutes, which allows him more time to enjoy the serenity of his blue world.
The moment you put your head in the water, everything is just shut out. And it's just such an incredible feeling. You could be on any planet. It's not of this world. You're just down there and got this weightlessness, and there's no outside influence whatsoever. And there's just absolute peace.
In 1999, Trevor set 3 free-diving African records. The first in a category where the diver has to swim as far as he can on one breath in a pool. Trevor set the new record at 100 meters. Trevor's next event was constant weight. Here the diver has to descend down a rope of a predetermined depth with fins. On the day of the event, the sea conditions were terrible, and the French judge didn't want him to dive at all. Eventually, he relented, and Trevor reached a depth of 55 meters, a new African record.
When I did the African records, when I picked up the tag, I could hear everybody down at 55 meters. I could hear them all just going mad. It sounded like I was in a stadium or something. I could hear them, yeah. I can pick up incredible things when I'm on a free dive because I'm very focused.
Free immersion is probably the most respected of all free diving categories. The diver pulls himself down a rope without the aid of fins. Trevor set a new African record at 46 meters, and it's in this discipline that he's aiming to break the world record in Namibia.
This pipe below me is 25 meters long. In order for Trevor to break the record, he's got to swim down more than twice this distance and hopefully back up again on just one breath. The current freshwater free immersion record is held by Patrick Musimu of Belgium
at 65 meters. This means that in order for Trevor to break the record, he has to increase his personal best by a staggering 20 meters. He started acclimatizing to the conditions at Lake Guinness 3 weeks before his scheduled attempt. On the practice dives, Trevor was very happy with his form and performance.
Good dive. Nicely controlled. Good dive.
Before Trevor arrived at Lake Guinness, he spent 2 weeks training in Sudwana, gradually increasing the depths of his dives by just a meter at a time.
The first idea that comes to mind is that as you're descending, you are breathing out.
No, on a free dive, you don't want to let any air out. The idea is to take as big a lungful of air as possible. You want to get the whole atmosphere into your lungs. Because your air is getting compressed, by the time you're at 10 meters, the air in your lungs has already been halved from the pressure. Okay, so you can imagine what it's like down at 70 meters. You've got no air. Your air is basically going into your bloodstream already.
Not only are the surroundings dramatic and untouched, but diving at Lake Guinness presents some unusual challenges.
This might be one of the most attractive and suitable sites for deep diving in the world. But there's a price to be paid. Just getting the personnel and equipment down to the water level is a mission in itself.
The lake is enclosed by high, treacherous cliffs, and access is very difficult. On a system of ropes and pulleys, the water pumping platform acts as a makeshift elevator to move the heavy gear up and down for each dive daily. Axel Schuller, an Austrian-born extreme scuba diver, is in charge of the whole dive operation.
Axel, you've dived at many sites around the world. How does this one in Namibia compare?
Well, it's one of the best locations I ever was diving in, or still dive in, so-called. I wouldn't miss that adventure, and just adding to it a world record event is just topping the thing, you know.
There's a hell of a lot of stuff to prepare.
Yeah, well, it's a big operation, and safety is primarily, so we are equipped for every eventuality. That's why we have this big amount of equipment and people and everything to be ready for any bad luck, but I don't think it will happen, so well, we're getting along.
When diving in Africa, not every problem can be anticipated, especially in the case of a deadly snake that must have fallen from the cliffs above, which tried to find a resting place in the dive team's boat. With some gentle persuasion, it sought refuge elsewhere. At the campsite in the morning, 10 days before Trevor's attempt, a cold wind brought with it bad news.
The weather's just changed now, and it's changed in the last night or so, and it's got really cold. I got a bit of a draft in my tent, so I've caught a cold or flu or something like that. 10 days before the record, it's not the best time to get ill, but I'll beat it, I'll be gone.
A local farmer took him into his home, and Trevor tried to sweat out the flu. With months and months of preparation hanging in the balance and the possibility that Trevor might not be able to dive, Axel decided that the rest of the team should take some time out to ease the tension and explore the lake at their campsite. Axel calls himself an aquanaut and is licensed to dive to 100 meters and more on a gas mixture.
The whole operation is based at another sinkhole called Lake Ochikoto. Not quite as clear, deep or scenic as Lake Guinness, but with a history all of its own.
At about 50 meters below the surface is probably the only underwater war museum in the world. During the First World War, the German troops dumped all of their armaments into this lake before they surrendered to the British. Cannons and boxes of ammunition lie discarded here in the dark silence. In 1983, a couple of cannons were brought to the surface and are now restored and housed in Tsumeb's museum. Ilse Schatz is the curator and says that the German troops were totally outnumbered by the British and had no option but to surrender.
The Germans were not prepared for the war. There were only 6,000 troops on mules, horses and camels. And the English troops were 60,000, 10 times more, with 2,000 motor cars and 6 brand new Belgish aeroplanes. So that was hopeless from the beginning. And the Germans went backward, and after 1 year, they were surrounded between Tsumeb and Otavi.
Many foreigners visit the museum, and some can't resist the tangible fascination of the well-restored cannons.
Have you tried out these cannons to see if they still work?
Yes, and the men play always with it. And now here is one, what you call that, cartridge?
Shell.
Shell is now like this, and now you can't relieve it. Because the men are like children. Everyone wants to load the cannon.
A couple of days later, through concentrated determination, Trevor had fully recovered from the flu and was anxious to get back into the water. Trevor has always dived head first, but while he was sick, he decided to change his approach dramatically for his world record attempt. With the help of Yapi Potgieter, the farmer he was staying with, Trevor designed a foot grip that would allow him to go down the rope feet first. He's now possibly the only diver in the world to use this method, and he says it feels far more comfortable.
It's certainly a lot more peaceful. It's, you're upright the way you live your life, it's in this position, and, also physiologically, with the pressure being below, it pushes all the gases up towards your air spaces where you need it, and it's a lot more comfortable.
The day before the start of the event, the Swiss judge has arrived and the official measuring of the rope takes place. That night, Axel finalizes the finer points of the logistics of the dive with Trevor, while friends and family who have come to support him gather around the campfire. Trevor admits that he's beginning to feel the effects of the stress.
I was in the water and somewhere out of nowhere, my nerves just crumbled, I just had a very strange feeling today. I just had a real panic attack or something like that, but it was just nerves just all coming together, and I'm glad it happened because I think I've got it under control now.
On the dawning of the record dive, the team starts gearing up early to make sure everything is running with absolute synchronicity. Although this record is an individual attempt, its success depends on the strength of the supporting team.
The primarily thing what we look at is number one, of course, Trevor's safety. So this is the first priority we are looking for. Then we have equipment failures, so things are missing, and so we have to incorporate that in the whole time schedule for Plan B, that there's room for it.
There is no margin for error in this sport. A small mistake can have fatal consequences. The orange stretcher bobbing on the water is an obvious sign of the treacherous pitfalls that Trevor may be exposed to. The greatest danger facing divers is shallow water blackout. This usually happens on the last part of the ascent, 5 to 10 meters from the surface. The diver runs out of oxygen, blacks out, and may drown if he doesn't have assistance. For even the most skilled diver, this is still a prevalent danger. Last year, Trevor attempted a free diving world record in Cyprus. Unfortunately, on both days, he experienced shallow water blackouts on his ascent. Had his safety divers not brought him to the surface, he would have drowned. Sean French is the paramedic in charge on this dive and is fully prepared if Trevor should have another shallow water blackout.
Once he reaches the surface, then we just keep his airway open and his face clear of the water. And then as the carbon dioxide levels in his blood rises, it will then stimulate breathing through his brain. And should it happen, should he black out for any reason underwater, then obviously it becomes more life-threatening. If he maybe drifts away from the line and sinks down to the bottom, but the divers should take care of that.
Trevor has a support team of 11 safety divers who are posted along the way to monitor his progress. Dave Mann is the timekeeper and in charge of regulating the operation.
When Trevor gets on site, there's no dithering around, there's no messing with anything. That way it makes him a lot calmer because everything's done. He wants to just get here, do the job, and carry on.
The divers are in position with their equipment. The safety personnel are down there. Basically, we're ready to roll. It's been a noisy and busy operation. The only missing element is Trevor. He's due here any moment, and once he arrives, the whole atmosphere changes, especially when the order 20 minutes is given. Then there has to be absolute silence.
While the team prepares, Trevor is at the farmhouse trying to relax before his big dive. A half an hour before he's due to test his limits in the water, he picks up his parents, Jack and Jeanette, who've come to see him dive for the first time. The tranquil waters await, and Trevor has to consciously calm his nerves and focus on the demanding task ahead.
The thing is, if you're calm and you're relaxed, you've got no tension in your body, the pressure doesn't really affect you. You know, what generally will affect you is if you tense, the pressure will find it and it's going to work on that tension. So you've got to just be relaxed.
Trevor does a couple of yoga stretches as he strengthens his focus and finalizes his strategy for the record attempt. As he approaches the water, a silence descends on the rocky cliffs.
In terms of a sporting event, this is very different. The odd splash, the odd whisper, maybe a bird call, but otherwise just silence and sheer tension.
The 20-minute signal has been given and the countdown has started.
Give the divers 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes, divers. One minute. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The first part of the dive goes smoothly. Trevor touches the plate with his feet, but on his ascent he nearly forgets to touch the marker. There are two judges in this event, camera at the plate at the bottom, and the Swiss judge Sebastian Nachel from the International Dive Association, who has to check that Trevor is fully conscious when his head breaks the water.
I look mainly the eyes, because we see everything in the eyes. We see if the freediver is there or not, and we also look at the head and the shoulders. If they are shaking or not, it's very easy to look at these many signs with a little bit of experience.
As Trevor reaches for the surface, the safety divers descend to help him, ever aware of the dangers of a blackout. A faultless dive. All it takes is 2 minutes and 11 seconds, and Trevor Hutton is the new world record holder at 66 meters.
It was a case of beating myself more than just getting past myself. And that's what it was, and for me, very good feeling.